Raw, real, and just a little dangerous. This is Feral.
You know, you're all thought leaders in your own way. You're all doing your own thing, making your own impact. And yet, every now and then, you come across a piece of someone else's intellectual property that you're like, damn, I wish I had come up with that. And that is exactly how I feel about many, many, many pieces of Crista Grasso's brain NIP, but especially this one slide dynamo that she's about to unleash upon us all. And just when you think you've got it figured out, she reminds you that there's another side of the pyramid. So I don't want to give too much away, but let me just tell y'all, I have suffered a lot because of burnout. I have gotten autoimmune diseases. I've gained and lost a ton of weight. I've certainly lost a bunch of sleep. I am no stranger to burnout on both an emotional or an organizational standpoint. And today we're talking about both. But I also knew that for a long time, I might be the enemy of my own burnout and I might be causing my own burnout. And Crista illuminated this in a way that made me realize that, yeah, a little bit of it may have been a miscommunication on my part, but it's a fixable one. And so I don't want to spoil a dang thing, but let's just say, ladies, gentlemen, and all esteemed non-gendered guests of this event, or all gendered of this event, one of the greatest business builders I've ever known is about to blow your mind with a single slide, Krista. Oh, you're over here.
No pressure at all.
Take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you. And I noticed in the last session that y'all had your paper and pen out. So this will be one that you want to do the exact same thing. Get ready to draw a picture. Don't worry, it's simple. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get this party started. All right.
Oh, I thought you were monomonizing for a second. There we go. I brought it up to the screen.
All right. Can everyone see my slides? Are we good to rock and roll here?
I believe we're good to rock and roll. I'm going to pop to the chat. And if you need me, just say, hey, Annie, and I'll come right back.
Fantastic. All right. So burnout, as Annie shared, I think it's something that we've all experienced either directly, some of us, I'm kind of pointing to myself here, multiple times, or it's something that we've helped our clients through. We've seen our peers go through, we've supported our friends through, right? Burnout is very, very real in entrepreneurship. We all know this far too well. And the reality is there's certain things that drive this. And a lot of it is not just the advice that we're told, not just the way that we're encouraged to approach our business, set up our business models, but a lot of it comes down to the way that we get support for ourselves as a founder. And that's what I'm going to walk you through here with the pyramid, but also the way that we provide support to our clients. So I'm going to be approaching this from dual lenses. So for some of you, one of the lenses will apply. For others, both lenses will apply, right? So we're going to look at it through the founder lens and how you structure your own time and how you get support for yourself within your own business. And we're also going to look at it through the lens of those of you who support other businesses or other people in the work that you do. So we're going to look at both sides of this. And the reality is that the way that most of us receive and give support is ultimately what leads to burnout. Because as much as we can fall into traps of overworking, the reality is it's not quantity of time as much as it is quality of time. It's what we spend our time on and how much what we're doing completely sucks the ever-loving life out of us versus fuels us and kind of energizes us to keep going, right? Like a day for me, architecting business models and designing teams and creating these big ecosystem maps, I could do that and good luck tearing me away from the computer. Whereas if you want me to do a whole lot of administrative stuff, or you want me to do a whole lot of techie stuff, like 30 minutes in and I felt like I've worked 3 weeks, right? And so it's not just quantity. Sometimes it is very much quality. And what I find happens quite often is we frequently get pulled down a little bit too low in what we're doing. And as a result, not only do we not have the physical time, like the literal time to do what we need to, but we don't have the mental time or energy to do the things that actually fuel us. And those things, when they build up and repeat, ultimately lead to burnout. That being said, let's dive in, draw the pyramid out. So if you've got yourself your paper and pen, go ahead and draw this. It's very simple looking and it can seem misleadingly simple. There's quite a bit of layer and nuance to it that I'm going to guide you through. When I think about the way we structure our business, when I think about the way that we get support in our business, and then we'll talk about this through the lens of supporting our clients, I really look at it as 4 different layers. At the top is vision. And as a business owner, that is all us, right? We 100% own the vision of our business. The only exception is if we have a co-founder, and maybe there's two of us that own the vision of the business. But vision is not something that you can outsource. It is something that is wholly owned by the founder. You can get support with that. You can have people challenge you to think bigger. This is something I do a lot for my clients. I'm sure many of you do this as well for yours. But ultimately, the vision is owned by the founder. Now, from there, you've got your strategy. And so there are 1,000,001 ways that you can bring that vision to life. There's 1,000,000 different business models. There's 1,000,000 different structures and tools and channels and all the different things that you can do, right? No shortage of could do's in business. Your strategy is the approaches that you're going to take to go ahead and get to your vision, ideally in the most simple, streamlined, and aligned way possible. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that we end up doing, and that definitely contributes to burnout, is as founders, because we hold the vision, we think we need to holistically own the strategy. We think that we need to be experts in every single facet of every single thing in our business, and that we have to know all of the strategies and all of the things on things that we might have heard of 5 minutes ago, or things that are just the thing that we don't actually care to do whatsoever. For those who are highly strategic and very creative, it might be the more tactical or operational things. For those who are very operationally minded, who love getting things done and analyzing things and doing that, maybe for them, the creative kind of strategic stuff, maybe not their favorite place to be, right? Some of us bridge both. But that being said, a lot of times founders try to holistically own the strategy and don't get strategic support. And that puts a ton of pressure, especially as you're reaching new levels in your business, because what you know how to do is what's going to get you to where you are now. You haven't gotten to where you're trying to go next yet, so you can't possibly strategically understand how to get there yet. And the amount of time and energy that you need to pour into figuring that out and trying to figure that out across every facet of your business, really heavy mental load, and not always the best use of time. Feels like you're playing in the right place because you're in strategy, but sometimes it's actually taking you away from vision instead of propelling you towards it. But that being said, let's get into the areas where this really gets interesting and where burnout really comes in. And I'm going to start to kind of do a little fly in here, right? So vision is you. This is the people, the person who determine and hold that vision and direction, the North Star of where you're taking your business. Strategy is the people who are looking at the big picture, the puzzle, the overarching, that are saying, what are all the different pieces that we want to pull together to actually make this vision real? What does it look like? Who do we need? What do we need? How do we want to get there? And kind of what do we have to work with? Now, strategic execution is the layer that most people are missing. Most people immediately start to hire at the execution level. They'll hire a VA. They'll hire someone to go post on social media. They'll hire someone to manage and implement their tech, right? So they'll do and bring somebody in who's very much a doer, someone who can roll up their sleeves and get things done. And if you are of the visionary variety, that is great, because visionaries are awesome at starting things. They are not always awesome at implementing or finishing the things that they start, because we're idea generating machines, right? And so as a visionary, having someone who can roll up their sleeves and do, fantastic, awesome, super valuable, definitely want that. But the problem is that a lot of people bring people in at the execution level only. They do not have anybody between them as the visionary and the people who are rolling up their sleeves and getting things done. And that's a big problem. It's a very big problem, because if you look at the pyramid, there's 4 layers, not 2. And so you always inherit the levels below you if there is not someone in that level. So if you've got a couple of people, maybe you have a VA and you have somebody who manages your social media. And those are the two. You have somebody who does your posting on social media and somebody who handles kind of everything else, your mailbox, your scheduling, your admin, your tech. So you've got 2 people who support you, and they're very much in the doer capacity. Well, then you have to not only set the vision, you have to figure out where you're going over all of the different facets of the business. You need to create all of the plans and all of the clarity for them to know what to do. You have to tell them constantly what to do, because at the execution level, they're very focused on tasks. They're very focused on doing, like, what do I need to do today? Their longest horizon that they're looking is maybe, what do I need to do this week? But for the most part, it's very much today. What do I need to get done? And so if there's nobody between you and the people who are doing, you're the one that's setting all of the stage. You're the one that's telling them exactly what to do. You're checking what they did. You're probably fixing and course correcting most of what they did. And a lot of really well-intentioned but very misled people will tell you, well, that's okay. All you need is SOP. Just create a lot of SOPs, and then they know how to do everything, and you don't have to keep telling them what to do. But life doesn't work that way. And SOPs, I won't go down the SOP rant. That'll take me a very long time. Valuable in some sense, way overused, way over kind of relied upon. And if you build the right team structure, very not necessary in the way that a lot of people use them. So what you don't need is to tell everyone what to do, check everything that they're doing. You end up in the delegation boomerang, delegation hell. Like your life is literally just to figure out what everyone else needs to do and go tell them what to do, or to give them very routine things that they do over and over and over again and hope that there's nothing that comes up out of routine that you have to stop what you're doing and answer questions and support them, which we all know is just life and it happens all day, every day. So where most founders burn themselves out is vision, wholly own, almost never have time for. Strategy, sometimes don't get support for it at all and try to figure everything out across the business. Or you may have some support at it, but the only level that you have below is execution, and you don't have someone at strategic execution. And without someone at that level, you end up incredibly burned out and incredibly frustrated because you've got a team. You're paying for a team. You're like, I have people, they're good people. I don't understand why I still have to make all the decisions, answer all the questions, check all the things, fix all the things. What's going on? Why am I working more than I did before I had a team? I just want to let everyone go and go back to when this was simpler. Anyone ever do that? I know lots of people who have literally let go of their entire team thinking that business will just be easier and simpler again if I just have a smaller team or if I just do it all myself. And instead, what they end up doing is recreating the problems all over again. And all they needed to do was shift the structure of their team and bring people in at a strategic execution level. So remember when I said you inherit the levels below you if you don't have anyone in that level? Well, I don't hire a single person on my team, a single person ever at an execution level. And it doesn't mean that people don't do things on my team. My team is very busy. They're very productive. They're incredible. But it's because I only hire people at a strategic execution level who also execute. And that means I don't have to tell them what to do. I can give them goals. I can give them strategic direction, and they figure out the plan. They know their area of expertise incredibly well. They know my kind of brand. They know my core values. They know the things we say and the things we don't say and the way we treat our clients and the way we don't. They know all of the brand isms and the things that make us who we are. They have enough guidance and guiding principles to do their job really well. And I hire people who are actually good at their job that don't need to follow a checklist. They actually know how to get results and how to take a broad vision or broad goals with some specific kind of deadlines and things that are coming up and turn it into what actually matters and what moves things forward. And that is a 100% complete and total game changer in your business. And one really strong strategic execution person is sometimes worth 3 or 4 execution people when it comes to the return that you get on that person, which means you can usually afford to invest more in a strategic execution person. A lot of times people think they're saving money by getting people at an execution level. They're not as skilled. You're kind of bringing them into more just do routine or checklist oriented things. And so you can sometimes get support overseas. You can hire people for lower rates. Sounds really appealing. There's a lot of companies that market it as a really smart thing to do. But in the end, it ends up not actually giving you a lot of freedom. It more traps you in the day-to-day, and it leads to burnout faster than almost anything else because you can't play up here anymore. All of your time is sucked down here, plus the stuff that you're doing to try to deliver to your clients and the things that you've sold. So you own vision holistically. You do not outsource that. At a strategy level, this is where you might have people who have different areas of expertise that are supporting you, right? Once you get into the high multi-7, 8 figures, a lot of times you bring in a full-time CMO, COO, maybe VPs of different functions, right? When you're in that high multi-6 to high multi-7, that's where you've got your fractionals, right? That's what I do. That's what I train and certify people in, is fractional CSOO, Chief Strategy and Operating Officer. That's that role that's kind of looking broadly across and helping the visionary and the founder figure out what needs to happen across the full puzzle of the business. Sometimes it's hiring consultants or advisors, or maybe even joining a mastermind. So you've got people at your level who can help you figure out the right strategic things to do and make those discerning decisions about which direction you're going to go in to achieve the vision and goals that you have. Sometimes this is high-level coaching as well. So that's the type of support that you're typically getting yourself strategy. At strategic execution, this is where you want to be bringing bringing in, like from a financial perspective, you got a financial advisor or a bookkeeper, right? They just kind of go, they do their thing, they can help you, they can guide you, they can strategically tell you what to be looking at. A marketing manager. So this isn't just the person rolling up their sleeve and posting on social media. This is the person that's looking at all your launches and all of your events and everything that's coming up. And they're coming up with the full strategy. And they're like, okay, this is what we're doing to attract these people. This is what we're doing to nurture these people. Here's what I think we should do to get better conversion rates, right? These are people who are fully supporting you in achieving the outcomes you want in the business versus just tactically going out and posting something and no one is really looking at how it all connects other than you, which is really overwhelming and draining. This might be an ads manager, someone who figures out your ad strategy if you're doing paid traffic and who also runs the ads and monitors them and optimizes them. This is where you can hire a project manager or an OBM. This is where one of the other roles I certify for is an SOM, a scalable ops manager. Again, the person who's kind of looking broadly across with here's the strategies. Great, now how do we actually get this done and who needs to do what when to do it? And then finally, execution, right? This is your kind of doers, your assistant, maybe a VA, a tech VA, someone along those lines. Now, sometimes you've hired someone at an execution level who would make a fantastic strategic execution person. They might just need a little training. They might just need a little love and kind of investment in thinking differently. Instead of thinking in terms of tasks and what do I need to get done, shifting that to start thinking in terms of outcomes and starting to connect strategy to execution. Most people who end up in a strategic execution role started in an execution role. So you might have someone who can absolutely elevate and end up stepping into that, and you don't have to hire anybody different, which is the best possible thing. You just broaden their responsibility and you shift really ultimately the way they think about things. Sometimes you need to start looking for different people who simply think about and can take on responsibility and take on leadership in different capacities. But this is the pyramid. So I'm going to pause for a second before I start getting into more details of this and I flip and look at it through the lens of when you deliver to your clients. Annie, any questions or anything you want to add to this?
Just love. I mean, I'm obsessed with this dang pyramid, but I just put very cheekily in the chat. Did y'all hear the critical word training though? Because yes, it is totally true. So often your strategic implementer is sitting in your current sphere. You already know them. You already love them. They've probably already sweat equity invested in your business. However, Krista said a very critical word. As someone who has both been an implementer, a strategic implementer, and a strategy non-implementer, and a visionary, all for goodness, do not just chuck your poor VA to the wolves and expect them to know what strategy is. If you find the right person, you want to invest in them, right? Because Krista said something critical before, which is that if you do not have someone in all of these seats, you inherit any seat that you don't currently have. So if you really don't have a strategic implementer, you become the strategic implementer, and not for nothing. If you elevate your strategic implementer or you elevate your implementer to strategic implementer and you don't have an implementer, guess who winds up implementing? You. So I just feel like this is that's why I call it the Bermuda Triangle of Burnout, because in my life, on both sides of the pyramid, I have been horribly underpaid and overworked because I did not communicate my place on this pyramid. As an employer in my own way, I have been wildly confused as to what I'm paying for because I didn't understand, or maybe the people I hired, most likely both, didn't understand where they were on this pyramid. And for those of us who are playing that 1 foot over here and 1 foot over here, like you and I do, where we are both the visionary of our own tiny empire and a service provider simultaneously, it can feel like you're, rubbing your stomach and patting your head because you're like, wait, hold on. What seat am I wearing at this time? Or wearing? We don't wear seats. What am I occupying right now? So I just think that that's like so incredibly critical because so many times There's training necessary, there's communication necessary, and then there's just good old expectation management.
It's so true. And so often what I find is people will hire someone in an execution role thinking they hired someone in a strategic execution role. And
Yep.
that person might have amazing aspirations, but they are not yet ready to actually hold that role. They maybe haven't had the right training or development yet to be able to do it well. Or you hired someone at execution, they thought they were at execution, but all of a sudden your expectations start going closer to strategy and strategic execution. And that person feels completely out of their element. There's no way they can be successful. They're overloaded and stressed out all the time because they can't do what you're expecting of them. And you're frustrated because they're not doing what you're expected of them. But the reality is you hired someone down here and you are expecting them to behave up here. And that's a very big disconnect. And that also can contribute to burnout because in addition to your time, like going on things that suck your energy, nothing sucks your energy worse than being frustrated all the time. And if you've ever had someone that you expect to do something and they're not doing it, or you've got to go in and clean things up, or they put something out that wasn't the right quality, there is nothing more frustrating than that.
No, there's not. It's just because it's just unnecessary energy expenditure. It's just a headache that nobody asked for and could have been avoided. It's like all of the things that you don't want in one little.
And so let's go through really quickly because I know we're coming up on time here, but I just want to kind of really root this in your thinking because I want you to take this. I told you to draw it, right? So hopefully you've sketched out really simple, but I want you to start not only mapping your current team to it if you have it. And when I say team, I don't mean full-time people. These are your freelancers. These are your contractors. These are the agencies that you partner with. This is anybody who provides support to you in any capacity, including your coaches and advisors. Look at where your support structure maps to this. But then where it really starts to get interesting is look at where you think you map to this for your clients. Where do you think you should be versus where do you think they see you? And that right there can be super eye-opening because I'm telling you now, if you think you're there for strategy and they think you're there for strategic execution, which is almost always the case, or you think you're there for strategic execution and they think you're there for execution, you are dramatically underpaid and overworked.
Yes, ma'am. You just defined a decade of my life at least. Yes, freaking ma'am. And alternatively, if you're being paid implementer prices and being asked for next level strategy, then I beg you to reconsider how you position yourself as an expert because yes, maybe the client is underpaying you and maybe that's on some way their fault, but it's probably just as much, if not more so, speaking from my own experience, because you haven't explained this pyramid to them.
Yep. And I'm telling you right now, here's what happens. Your client asks you to do something. It's outside the scope of what you normally do, but you're like, they're in a bind. I know they really need this done. I can do it. I'm going to be a team sport. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to help them. And you drop a level. Sometimes you drop 2 levels because you're just there to help them. You're going to just help them this one time. They're going to appreciate it. They're going to
Now
see
she's
how
picking
awesome you
on me.
are.
She brought me back up on camera to pick on me.
You now live at that lowest level. You live there forever. They will want you to implement every single time. It will be hard to ever elevate back up. It is an unfortunate truth. I help my clients with this all the time in my certification programs. This is the number one thing I fight when I'm trying to help people in structuring their services and looking at what they say yes to and what they say no to. So you've got to resist that urge at all costs because it's very hard to do when you want to help your client so much, but what you're better off doing is saying, I can have someone on my team do that for you. You can't do it though, because the second you do it, you drop in somebody's perception. It's an unfortunate truth. I wish it weren't true, but it is true.
It's like once you see somebody blackout drunk, you can never take them quite as seriously again, even if you still like them. You're like, I've seen you sing into a potted plant. Where, whatever it may be. So how do we have these conversations with our teams, with our potential hires, and with the people hiring us? Do you have any tips on how we communicate this to others so that the burnout can be avoided, no matter who's having the conversation and with whom?
Yeah. Now, if you're providing the services, if you're a service provider, which I bet many of you are, know where you want to sit on this pyramid. A lot of service providers love strategic execution, and that's awesome. If you're doing strategic execution, you need to understand, are you doing both, or is your business doing both and you're there for strategy and your team is there for execution? Get really clear on that. That should both impact your pricing, but more importantly, how you show up and how you deliver and position things. If you're there for strategy, know how far you'll go and be really clear in your communication. So you don't have to use the words execution, strategic execution, strategy, but you do want to think of this positioning and make sure that your proposals are really clear in it, and make sure that you are being really careful in what you say yes to outside of that scope. But for yourself, look at your own pyramid and look at where you have gaps. And right now, if it is you living in this land up at the top and you've got people in execution and no one in strategic execution, which is what is true of most business owners when they're in a place of burnout, or you've got gaps in strategic execution, maybe you have one person, but you don't have enough of the kind of functions of the business covered, then what I would recommend is start with your execution people and see if they can be up-leveled. Do you have someone with the right attention and focus and training and support could get there? And if not, make it a priority to find someone, because it is a night and day business that you are running when you have that type of support versus when you don't.
Crista Grasso, all honored guest. I told y'all that she was going to blow your mind in just one slide. Every time I see it, she blows mine. Crista, what's next? How can people get in contact with you if they want more of you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have right-hand operators that you'd love to train and certify, head over to strategicopsinstitute.com. You'll find info there. Or if you would like to learn more about me, go to leanoutmethod.com. And as always, you can find me on my podcast, which is the Simplify to Scale show. And that's where I talk about stuff like this every single week.
Every now and then I pop on and we have the Crista and Annie show. It's a blast.
She might be on next Tuesday, just saying.
I didn't even know that. Crista, you are my favorite. Thank you for being here. Thank you for blowing our minds.
Raw, real, and just a little dangerous. This is Feral.